Now, this guy, Robert Fisher, drugged a 3-year-old black girl, raped her, and killed her. And he did not make it long in prison.
The police who arrested him are talking about the sudden death of Robert Fisher in prison. We broke that news last night. Fisher is the 34-year-old man police called a monster. He raped, murdered, and then tried to cover up what he did to little Josephina Cunningham.
She was just 3 years old. New at 6 now, one of the officers who worked closely on this case tells us about his conversation with Josephina's father shortly after finding out Robert Fisher is dead. Let's go to Tessa Bentulin live here right now in the studio with us. Tessa, good evening.
Hi, good evening, Sabrina and Mark. I had the chance to interview Detective Sergeant Michael Diso with Rensselaer Police. He says Josephina's father wants to move on. Diso says Fisher's death makes the father relive that terrible attack on his young daughter. Josephina died in July 2023 in Rensselaer at the hands of Fisher. This is Josephina on your screen. Fisher is accused of raping her while she was alive and awake. Fisher just began a 20 years to life in prison sentence. He was serving his time at Elmira Correctional Facility. Detective Sergeant Diso was one of the first handful of officers that responded the day Josephina died. He's had many conversations with Josephina's father. And what was that exchange like?
It was tough because there's nothing going to bring his daughter back, and although he's no longer paying for this person to be in prison to pay for his meals and his lodging, it's not going to bring his daughter back. He's still without his daughter, and it's still bringing it up over and over again.
I also got to catch up with Josephina's older brother, Jaquan Stewart. He says his sweet and smart little sister who loved Baby Shark deserved to grow up and live a full life. Stewart tells us what he and his mother thought about Fisher's death.
My mom was very shocked and she's relieved. She's dead. She's happy that she's dead. A lot of people are happy that he's dead. I was very shocked because I really wanted a death penalty, and I was hoping he can serve his life sentence 20 years.
Rensselaer police say they do not know yet how Fisher died. Fisher's death is being investigated by state coroners and medical examiners.
Yo, I don't believe that. Y'all don't know how he died? I'll roll with it though, but sounds like somebody got at him. What was this guy doing babysitting that little girl? That was the first thing I wondered. But he was actually, he was living with the girl's mother. Again, I don't know their exact living conditions, but he was living with her mother. And look at this guy. He looks crazy, right? He looks like a lunatic. Is that him? You can look at him. Listen, I don't care what nobody say about how a person looks. I don't care. People look at me and they judge me. Fine. There's nothing I can do to stop that. And I do the same thing. And it's not something that I'm even in control of. I can't even help it. Nobody can help it. When you see people, you instantly get some type of, your brain badly wants to process, what type of person is this? There's no way this guy looks like the type who I would leave my daughter alone with. What is with Keisha and her trust? She has serious trust issues. Now, I listen to a lot of content from black men. Black men here on YouTube are the true scientists of society. They're the true scientists. And I go there to get information. one thing that I picked up from one of the scientists is that Keisha typically has a pattern of dating. I'll say black women tend to have a pattern of dating. Their love life largely tends to go a certain way. Their first choice is the Pookies and Ray Rays, so-called black men who are not that productive, who are in the streets, who are doing things that's illegal that could wind them in an early grave or prison. That's the majority of most black women's choice, aka Pookies and Ray Rays. And after that, if they move on to something else, they go after Brad / white men. And any white man will do. And if that falls apart, then they go after the productive black men. The black men who are looked at as square back in the day. The black men who are now productive, law-abiding. They use them as the last resort. But their first two choices is the non-productive hood rat Pookie and Ray Ray. That's usually a first choice, or the first choice could be Brad. But it's usually not. You know, they grow up around in the black community. So they usually mess around with the Pookies and Ray Rays, the non-productive black men. They choose the specific type of black man. He has to be non-productive. He got to be a thug. He just got to be like the rappers on TV. That's their first choice, usually, for most of them. Then they try to so-called level up and move on to Brad. And when they do that, that's when, usually when they're trying to get married. That's when you hear about oh, I got a ring and I'm getting married. And they put forth a lot of effort to actually trying to get married whenever they move on to Brad. And if that doesn't work out, that's when they go to the productive black men. But by that point, the black women are usually have a lot of wear and tear on them, out of shape, no longer young and pretty, no longer childless. And the message from this black male scientist is to avoid them. Don't fall for that. I'm finding out there's a lot of truth to that because I'm seeing that pattern a lot. I've even seen it in places that I won't even mention right now, but I have seen that pattern all my life. And there's a lot of truth to it. You see it everywhere. That, and truth be told, that's what Cynthia G's platform is primarily made up of. Hood rats. Demonically possessed Keishas who usually mess around with the dangerous black male population. They're out here in the streets, get you shot up, get you locked up. Pookies and Ray Rays, and then they move on to Brads, and that's when they start degrading black men. And that really became a thing. And there seems to be a lot of truth to that. This is the guy who was taken out. And the family is a typical inner city, low income, single mother type of family. Y'all remember this crazy story? It's always been the craziest story I ever heard. One of the craziest. There's a lot of crazy stories out here, but this one is at the top.
We're covering a very disturbing case out of West Harris County now.
Late yesterday,
Wait a minute. I don't know if I want to do that one. Yeah, we'll do that one.
mother and her boyfriend were arrested after remains of a child were found. 35-year-old Gloria Williams has been charged with injury to a child by omission, and 31-year-old Brian Coulter has now been charged with murder. Williams' family says they haven't spoken with her in months. It's a story you'll see only on 2.
How did we get to this? How could you not reach out and just be like, y'all, I've lost control. It's not in a good space. Mm-hmm. And we would have taken all of the kids.
This seems like another case too. She had 3 sons. They were all black sons. So clearly, before she got with Brad, she was messing with black boys.
And all of the kids.
The children had been living with their brother's skeletal remains for nearly a year.
You hear that? Did you hear that?
The children had been living with their brother's skeletal remains for nearly a year.
I still remember this case. This guy beat the 8-year-old boy to death. He used to punch them in the face all the time. And she let him. And look at her. Look at her hair. Possessed. In fact, really, they both got the same demon inside them. Both possessed by the same demons, just express itself in different ways because it's in 2 different bodies. But it's the exact same demon. She is the typical inner city, low income, single mother household coming out of. Pookie and Ray Ray laying up with, tried to move on, level up to Brad. And it seems like when they try to level up the Brad, they take any Brad. This guy got warrior tattooed on his neck. You should see some of his YouTube videos. They are horrible at detecting which Brads might be safer than others. I've definitely noticed they're horrible at that. And you can tell this is a population that have no fathers, no fatherly guidance at all. And you can tell there's just no father energy in their life at all. Beat her son to death. She let him. And after he beat her son to death, they put his carcass in the closet in the same bedroom where the other 2 boys stayed. The carcass started to smell, so they left and moved into a different apartment. But guess what? They left the kids in that old apartment. The other 2 sons that were still alive. Her son's body was starting to decay. They told you it was over a year. They had to deal with that. Those 2 boys had to deal with that. And they were living by themselves. They would come by every night and give them food, give the boys food as if they were dogs. She felt like she found her savior, her Jesus, her Brad. Was going to ride off into the sunset. Didn't care about her sons at all. Crazy, right? The works of a demon. People might think my theory of demonic possession is kind kind of out there, but I think it's easy to argue it. I mean, when you got stories like this, the story does all the work for you.